They say that money changes people. I've always found that to be a fundamental misunderstanding of wealth. Money doesn't change you, it simply unmasks you. It acts as an amplifier, turning the quietest hum of your true nature into a deafening roar. My name is Maya, and I'm a billionaire. You wouldn't know it if you saw me on the street. You wouldn't know it if you looked at my closet, filled with vintage thrift finds and sensible shoes. And you certainly wouldn't have known it if you asked my boyfriend Julian. To Julian, I was just Maya, the quiet, supportive freelance illustrator who occasionally paid for dinner, who listened to him practice his venture capital pitches until 2 in the morning, and who lived in a cozy, entirely unremarkable apartment in the city. Julian was a creature of ambition. He was the founder of a tech startup called Aura, a predictive analytics software that he swore would change the world. He was handsome, charismatic, and fiercely desperate to be a part of the 1%. What Julian didn't know was that I was already the 0.1%. I am the sole heir and acting CEO of the Vance Sterling Group, a private equity firm that practically owns half the city's commercial real estate and funds some of the biggest tech unicorns in the world. I hid my identity because I wanted something money couldn't buy. I wanted to be loved for me, not my portfolio. I wanted someone to look at me and see a partner, not an ATM. But I loved him. I loved him enough to want his dreams to come true. So I became his invisible guardian angel. When Aura was about to go under during its seed round, a mysterious shell company out of Luxembourg called Ethelgard Holdings swooped in with a $2 million lifeline. When his lead developer quit, Ethelgard provided the capital to hire a better one. I was the puppet master, cutting the strings of his failures and paving his road to success with gold, all while sitting on a ratty IKEA sofa, rubbing his shoulders and telling him how proud I was of his luck. I gave him everything, and in return, he gave me the most agonizing lesson of my life. It was a Tuesday. It was supposed to be the best week of Julian's life. Aura was on the precipice of securing its Series C funding, a massive $50 million injection that would take the company public. Naturally, Ethelgard Holdings was the lead investor. I had spent the entire morning in a secure boardroom, finalizing the paperwork that would make my boyfriend a very, very wealthy man. Exhausted but thrilled, I decided to head to his apartment early to surprise him with his favorite takeout. I unlocked his door, balancing a bag of Thai food and a bottle of celebratory champagne. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I slipped off my shoes, padding softly across the hardwood floor toward the bedroom, a smile playing on my lips. Then I heard it, a laugh, a soft, breathless, familiar laugh. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just a woman's laugh, it was her laugh. Chloe. Chloe was my best friend. We had known each other since college. She was a high-end real estate agent, loud, glamorous, and relentlessly confident. I had introduced her to Julian. I had defended her when he called her shallow. I had loved them both. I moved toward the bedroom door, which was left slightly ajar. Every step felt like I was wading through wet concrete. My mind desperately tried to construct a rational explanation. They're planning a surprise party for me. She's showing him a new property. I peered through the crack in the door. The Thai food slipped from my grasp. The bag hit the floor with a muted thud, but they didn't hear it. They were too wrapped up in each other. The image burned itself into my retinas. My boyfriend and my best friend, tangled in the sheets I had bought, in the bed I shared with him. But it wasn't just the physical betrayal that broke me, it was what they were saying. "You're amazing," Julian whispered, kissing her neck. Chloe laughed, running her fingers through his hair. "Better than Maya?" Julian scoffed. It was a cruel, dismissive sound that hit me harder than a physical blow. "Maya is comfortable. She's sweet. But she's small time, Chloe. She doesn't understand the world we're entering. Once the Series C closes and I'm officially a nine-figure CEO, I can't be dragging a freelance illustrator to global galas. I need someone who looks the part. I need you. Are you going to break it off with her before or after the ink dries? Chloe purred. After. She's been good to me. I don't want to deal with the tears right now. Let the deal close, then I'll cut her loose. We can spend the winter in St. Moritz. I stopped breathing. The pain didn't come immediately. Instead, a chilling, absolute numbness washed over me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't burst through the door to confront them. I backed away. I picked up the dropped bag of food, ensuring I left no trace of my presence. I walked out of the apartment, locked the door, and stepped into the elevator. By the time I reached the lobby, the sweet, naive girl who believed in true love was dead. I pulled out my phone and dialed my wealth manager, a ruthless, brilliant man named Marcus. Marcus, I said, my voice eerily calm. Miss Sterling, to what do I owe the pleasure? Are we finalized on the Aura deal? Halt the funding, I commanded. Freeze every asset connected to Ethelgard Holdings. I want a full aggressive forensic audit of Julian's company by morning. Call in every debt. And Marcus? Yes, Maya? I want you to look into a real estate agent named Chloe Vance. I want to buy the brokerage she works for. By the end of the week, I want to own every piece of earth she stands on. Consider it done, Marcus said, asking no questions. I hung up the phone. The tears finally came, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. Julian wanted someone who belonged in his world. He was about to find out that it wasn't his world at all. It was mine, and I was evicting him. Revenge, I quickly learned, is a dish best served with meticulous corporate precision. For the next 3 weeks, I played my part flawlessly. I was the loving, supportive girlfriend. I smiled when Julian kissed my forehead. I listened to his arrogant boasting about the impending funding. I even met Chloe for coffee, sipping a latte while she lied to my face about how busy her week had been. Every time they smiled at me, thinking they had me fooled, I felt a dark, satisfying thrill. They had no idea they were dancing on a trapdoor, and my hand was resting on the lever. My first target was Chloe. Chloe's entire identity was built on her status at Prestige Living, the top luxury real estate brokerage in the city. She thrived on her image, her connections, and her unearned sense of superiority. 2 days after the discovery, the Vance Sterling Group quietly acquired Prestige Living through a subsidiary. I didn't fire her. Firing her would be too easy. Instead, I had the new management completely restructure the commission tiers. Chloe's top-tier listings, the multi-million-dollar penthouses she relied on for her lavish lifestyle, were quietly reassigned to other agents due to a strategic realignment. I watched from the sidelines as she started to panic. Over our weekly brunches, her perfectly manicured facade began to crack. My new broker is an absolute nightmare, she complained to me one Sunday, viciously stabbing a piece of avocado toast. They took away my listing on Fifth Avenue. They're trying to freeze me out, Maya. I can't afford my car payments if this keeps up. Oh, Chloe, that's terrible, I said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand sympathetically. But you're so talented. You'll bounce back. Behind the scenes, I made sure she wouldn't. I tipped off a few high profile clients about some creative accounting she had done on past closing costs. Nothing strictly illegal, but enough to make her look incredibly untrustworthy. Within 2 weeks, Chloe's reputation in the luxury market was effectively toxic. She was drowning in debt, her credit cards were maxing out, and she was desperately leaning on Julian for emotional and financial support. Which brought me to phase 2. Julian. Julian's ego was entirely tied to Aura. The Series C funding from Ethelgard Holdings was his golden ticket. The paperwork was drawn up, the press releases were drafted, and Julian had planned a massive, opulent gala at the Ritz to celebrate the signing. He invited the city's elite, tech journalists, and, of course, me. It's going to be a big night, babe, he told me the night before the gala, adjusting his custom tailored tuxedo in the mirror. He looked at my reflection. I was wearing a simple, understated dress. You know, you might want to wear something a bit more flashy tomorrow. The cameras will be there. I'll find something suitable, I replied, smiling softly. Good, because after tomorrow, everything changes. You have no idea, I thought. The ballroom at the Ritz was a sea of crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and the suffocating scent of expensive perfume. Julian was in his element, working the room, shaking hands, and posing for photos. Chloe was there too, wearing a dress that cost more than her current bank balance, clinging to the edge of his orbit, waiting for her moment to take my place. I arrived late. I didn't wear a simple, understated dress. I wore a custom, floor length crimson gown by Alexander McQueen. I wore a diamond necklace that had been in the Sterling family for 4 generations. I looked like money. I looked like power. When I stepped into the ballroom, the ambient chatter dimmed. Julian, who was mid conversation with a tech reporter, stopped talking. His eyes widened as I walked toward him. Chloe, standing a few feet away, looked like she had seen a ghost. Maya? Julian stammered as I approached. You. You look expensive? I provided, offering a razor sharp smile. I was going to say stunning, he recovered, though his eyes darted around nervously. Where did you get all this? I've been keeping some secrets, Julian, but tonight is about you. Tonight is about the truth. At 9 p.m., it was time for the keynote. Julian took the stage to a round of applause. He gave his rehearsed charismatic speech about the future of tech, the brilliance of Aura, and the monumental partnership with Ethelgard Holdings. And so, to officially sign the paperwork and usher in a new era for Aura, Julian announced, gesturing grandly to the side of the stage. I'd like to invite the representative from Ethelgard Holdings to the stage. The spotlight swung toward the heavy velvet curtains. The room fell silent in anticipation. Julian stood at the podium, a smug, victorious smile on his face, a golden pen in his hand. The curtains parted. Marcus, my wealth manager, stepped out. He was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, holding a sleek leather folio. He walked to the center of the stage, ignoring Julian's outstretched hand, and stepped up to the microphone. Good evening, Marcus said, his voice echoing through the silent ballroom. I am Marcus Thorne, representing Ethelgard Holdings, a subsidiary of the Vance Sterling Group. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The Vance Sterling Group was a titan. Julian's smile faltered slightly, confused but still trying to maintain his composure. Unfortunately, Marcus continued, opening the folio, I am not here to sign a funding agreement. I am here to issue a public declaration of withdrawal. The room gasped. Julian dropped the golden pen. It clattered loudly against the podium. What? Julian hissed, stepping toward Marcus. This is a joke. We have a deal. We had a preliminary agreement pending a final financial audit. Marcus corrected smoothly, speaking directly into the microphone so the entire room and the journalists could hear. An audit which was completed this morning. It revealed gross mismanagement of previous funds, artificially inflated user metrics, and a toxic corporate structure. Ethelgard Holdings is entirely pulling its $50 million investment, effective immediately. Flashbulbs erupted. The room erupted into chaos. Julian's face turned a violent shade of pale. He grabbed the microphone. This is a lie! Who authorized this? I demand to speak to the CEO of Ethelgard. I demand to speak to the head of Van Sterling. Marcus stepped aside, adjusting his cuffs. He looked out into the audience, his eyes finding mine. The CEO is in the room, Mr. Vance. I believe you are intimately acquainted. The spotlight moved. It swept across the crowded room, past the bewildered journalists, past a horrified Chloe, and landed squarely on me. I stood bathed in the bright, unforgiving light. The crimson dress seemed to glow. Julian followed the light. When his eyes locked onto mine, I saw his entire reality shatter. His jaw went slack. He gripped the edge of the podium so hard his knuckles turned white. I walked slowly toward the stage. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. I could feel the heat of their stares, the frantic whispers, but I kept my eyes locked on Julian. I climbed the steps to the stage. Julian was trembling. Maya, he choked out. What is going on? I stepped up to the microphone, pushing him slightly out of the way. Good evening, everyone, I said smoothly. My name is Maya Sterling, CEO of the Vance Sterling Group and the sole owner of Ethelgard Holdings. For the past 3 years, I have been the silent primary backer of Aura. The silence in the room was absolute. It was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I turned my head to look at Julian. Julian Vance is a man of great ambition, I said, my voice dripping with honeyed poison. I believed in that ambition. I funded his seed round. I paid his developers. I kept his lights on when he was weeks away from bankruptcy. I did it because I believed in his character. I took a step closer to him, lowering my voice so only he and the microphone could catch the devastating intimacy of my words. But I have recently discovered that Mr. Vance's character is bankrupt. He is a fraud, in his business and in his personal life. Julian's eyes darted frantically toward the crowd, landing on Chloe, who was standing frozen, her face flushed with humiliation. The realization hit him. He knew that I knew. Maya, please, he whispered, his voice cracking. Let's talk about this in private. Don't do this. You didn't want a sweet, comfortable girl, Julian, I said, repeating his own words back to him. You wanted someone who belonged in your world. You wanted the 1%. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper that echoed like thunder in the silent hall. Welcome to my world. You don't survive here. I turned back to the audience. In addition to pulling our Series C funding, Ethelgard Holdings is immediately calling in all previous convertible notes. Aura is effectively insolvent. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the champagne. It's on me. I walked off the stage. I didn't look back. The aftermath was spectacular. The tech blogs had a field day. Aura collapsed within 48 hours. Julian was left with nothing but millions in corporate debt and a ruined reputation. No venture capitalist would touch him. He tried to call me, text me, and even showed up at the Vance Sterling headquarters, but my security had him escorted off the premises before he even reached the lobby. As for Chloe, when Julian's money vanished, so did she. But she had nowhere to run. With her reputation destroyed in the luxury market, she was forced to leave the city, quietly taking a job at a low-rent commercial brokerage 3 states away. I sat in my corner office on the top floor of the Sterling building, looking out over the city skyline. It was raining, a cold, driving rain that washed the streets clean. I took a sip of my coffee. It was quiet. It was peaceful. They thought I was just a quiet girl who didn't understand how the world worked. They thought they could use me, betray me, and discard me when they reached the top. But they forgot one crucial rule about climbing to the top of the mountain. You have to make sure you don't anger the person who owns the mountain.